Welcome back to another video with the Unspecialist. This time around, we're going to be talking about diversity. Guyana Water Incorporated recently published the names, faces, and designations of their corporate management team. The photo, published on Facebook, created quite the stir because the management team included 11 men and no women. And of course, in the Facebook comments, people let GWI know how they felt about the management team being all male. And in my opinion, the comments were quite interesting, to say the least. I think this comment from RT Cameron summarizes the dissenting opinions pretty well, and it reads, "Give the capable and competent Guyanese women whose skills and brilliance are no less, potentially greater than those in your frat club setup their deserved space. This is unacceptable. Do better." At the time of me recording this video, there hasn't been any information released on the exact selection process that GWI used to put together their corporate management team. However, given the limited information that is available, I can safely say that GWI did nothing wrong. Unless, of course, they intentionally and maliciously try to exclude women from the selection process or put certain obstacles or barriers in place to deliberately weed them out if they were part of the process. So, of the 11 members that are a part of that corporate management team, if all of them are qualified and competent, GWI is pretty much in the clear. Some of the questions that need to be asked are, were there available qualified women for the various posts? I'd say that is most likely. If it was a situation where you had to apply for these posts, did these women who were qualified actually apply? Then if they indeed applied, how well did they do in the interview process, if there was an interview process? Now, again, at the time of recording this video, the actual process has not been revealed, so we cannot say for certain if there was any foul play. But as I said, if all 11 members of the team are qualified and competent, then it is far more reasonable to assume that GWI did nothing wrong. However, given the current climate that we live in, if you're not making an active push for diversity, whether that means gender diversity or ethnic diversity, you're assumed to be engaging in some form of malpractice or bigotry. So automatically, if you don't have enough women in the lineup, or you don't have any women at all in this case, or you're automatically sexist, being misogynist and excluding women, etc. Or if there wasn't ethnic diversity, then you're being racist and discriminatory. However, at what point do we determine that there is sufficient diversity? For instance, the complaints are coming because there are no women on the team, right? And they're saying, it's an all-boys club, a frat-like atmosphere, etc. If there was only one woman on the team, then we'd be hearing there's not enough women. Then how many women would be enough? There's 11 members on the team, so what, 5 out of 11 suffice? Or, oh shucks, okay, we have one more man than woman, so it's 6-5. All right, so would 6 women suffice? But then at that point, you'll have more women than men. But at that point, I'm certain that's when the feminists and those that have a problem with this will be silent, because they'll say, oh, men have historically had an advantage, so it's about time women get an advantage. The lunacy is a bit surprising and disappointing at the same time, because at that point, we just be putting people on the lineup because they're women and not necessarily because they're qualified and competent. Now, of course, it would be great to have women there that are qualified and competent. And even if they are qualified and competent, is their insertion in the lineup just because they're women and that we need to have gender diversity? If that's the case, then I think we really need to take a serious look at why we're doing this and what the purpose is behind such a move. The same can be said for ethnic diversity. How do we actually achieve that ethnic diversity? Is it going to be a case where we do proportional representation. So this particular ethnic group makes up 15% of society. So we're going to have to ensure that 15% of all these groups include them. Or is it going to be, okay, this is a minority group, so they need to be overrepresented to account for diversity? It's a slippery slope, and as you can see how it can get highly problematic, because again, several factors have to overlap for you to achieve this and actually execute it perfectly. You're going to have someone in the field who's qualified, willing to work the position. And if there was an application process, that person would have actually had to apply and then go through the process. And at that point, what would you say then? If you put candidate A and candidate B up next to each other, they have similar resumes, they're both qualified, and you select one over the other, there shouldn't be any big difference or debate. Things only begin to get muddy and cause the firestorm that we saw on Facebook with this post, because you then see what the person is or who they are. Okay, they're male, or they're white, or Indian, or whatever group they belong to. That said, I'm also fairly certain that if there was some sort of gender balance that would have appeased those leaving negative comments on the post, then we would have had arguments about the ethnic diversity. And there actually were a few comments about that too. So that just goes to show that you can't please everybody, and some people are just hell-bent on being dissatisfied with whatever the particular situation is. In this case, it's the board being all male, and that's a problem, because despite them not having enough information, it's perfectly fine for them to assume that it's a boys' club, women are being excluded and discriminated against, and this is highly problematic. And that leaves me with a few questions. The first one is, where are the brave women whistleblowers inside GWI to expose this boys' club and misogynist atmosphere that many of the commenters seem to believe exists? If it does indeed exist, it would be really nice if we have a whistleblower to expose it and, bring the whole system down. Fight for women's rights and protect the interests of those women who are being unfairly excluded and exploited within the organization, according to the comment brigade. If there were women that were a part of the selection process and didn't make it, or failed somehow, then they also could come out and say, hey, I was a part of this process and I don't like how it went. I think I was discriminated against and unfairly treated. If they do exist and that actually happened, it would be nice to hear from those women too. Aside from that, it's no surprise to see some of the same tired feminist arguments being, more women graduate from university and high school, but with what degrees? That's the first question. And the second is, in what fields do they spend, or do they go to work most often? And as we would have seen with the situation with the coronavirus, a large percentage of those women are in the hospitality field, service industry, and not necessarily in other areas like engineering, mathematics, STEM in general. So it's fair to say that maybe this could be a case where that particular industry, or let's say that particular agency, is male dominated, more so on the basis of interest as opposed to nepotism. And of course, nepotism exists everywhere. We can't discount that fact. But again, if there aren't that many women in that area to begin with, then it's no surprise that at the upper levels, there also aren't going to be that many women. That is more a function of the demographics of the agency, industry, etc., as opposed to wanton discriminatory practices. These are just some of my thoughts on the matter. I'm sure you're going to have those folks saying, hey, you're a male, you don't understand the struggle, you're just misogynist. Of course, you're going to take the side of the organization and the men, and you can't see the discrimination because you're part of the quote-unquote privileged group. But in my opinion, this is a very fair assessment given the information that is available and actually deconstructing some of the comments or arguments that were made. If you have an agreement or disagreement, be sure to let me know in the comments. Hey, I could be wrong and you may actually have something very compelling to say. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content in the future. This is the Unspecialist saying, I wonder if those in the comments would have brought the same energy if it was another agency or organization posting a management team of all women. Would they have been fighting for men, saying we need to see more men on the lineup? Or would they just simply say, oh, men have been traditionally privileged and this is great to see so many women, yes queen and all that. I'm putting my money on the latter. Regardless, it's the Unspecialist saying I'm out. Peace.